Tanti Noor, thank you for waiting. Here you go.
Thank you very much.
Big applause.
Thank you for a very good talk, everyone. I'm honored to be here. And Khadija, you have done such a great job to energize all of us. So I would like to dedicate my gratitude to organizers, University of Color, and New Urban Collective for giving opportunity and space for all of us, and to have done a very good job to make decolonization start in academic world. So, decolonizing the university. The topic, which is the umbrella of this conference, decolonizing the university, is such a crucial issue for those who demand for equality without any exclusion, from the everyday life encounter to the level of institution, such as university and of course the state. Nonetheless, this can be a very painful and difficult journey. Our attempt is to undoing decolonization. This term, however, is loaded with complicated power relation, the dark side of history of colonialism that entangled with many factors such as race, gender, and social class. The bitter fruit that we swallow now, namely racism, white supremacy, patriarchy, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia, and exclusion of those who have different ability that we call disabled. In my paper, I'm going to emphasize on how colonization affects inequality in countries that have been colonized in the term of education, and how it shapes gender subjectivity and sexuality of the society. I migrated from Indonesia about 10 years ago. The country had been colonized by the Netherlands for 350 years. It wasn't a short time, yet I remember very little about the stories of struggle of my great-grandmother. 350 years was maintained within our history book vaguely. After Dutch and Japan gone and the dictatorship of our second president Suharto started right after the massacre of people associated with communism. In short, yay, we finally colonized by our government. Of course, the international conspirators were exist behind the never-ending colonization. Suharto managed to establish his power from 1967 to 1998, 31 years. I remember nationalism slogans such as "Fight for your country" from imperialists. Concomitantly, we are told to be more disciplined like the Dutch, our colonizer, as a role model. We wear American clothes without thinking of serving the dirty capitalism and slavery. And whenever people ask me, do the Indonesians hate the Dutch for colonized and plundered your resources and people? I am reluctant to respond, because my knowledge is so vague about it. What I learned was how to achieve the success like European countries, why the European countries are modern and civilized, while we are still in the developing level. Because they are innovative, they are smart, they work very hard, in opposition of us. This narrative has been maintained from both sides, how the West show it to us and it reproduced too within our nation to maintain inequality. The proud middle class, the rich, and the state has nothing to do with our poverty. If you want to achieve a success, a better economy, you should work harder and never involve with politics, or you will be kidnapped and killed. But the silence and the propaganda in the television was, of course, what made the dictatorship had worked so well. In the context of gender and sexuality, we have what they call the state of Ibuism. Ibu means mother. That the task of nurturing the children will be put on the shoulder of the mother. In order to accelerate the economic development, each family is suggested to have 2 children, not more, to nurture the children that obey the family, religion, and the moral lesson that we have to learn. It's part of education, including heteronormativity. Those are the tasks of mother and family. My encounter with non-binary, non-heteronormative, and even heteronormative Indonesian migrants during my fieldwork led me to question my own sexuality that I have been taking for granted. I believe this confused and uncertain feeling is necessary for all of us to question our body and sexuality. And I do feel the need to deconstruct my perception on my own sexual subjectivity. Meeting Indonesian migrants in the Netherlands, Belgium, French, Germany taught me a remarkable lesson on survival. Gender subjectivity is shaped by society and state, where we have a very little control of it, and it proved to me the latent oppression of the state towards our rights, which is subtle. Yet, it enters our intimate space without our consciousness. I learned an individual political act and resistance that experienced and practiced by my friends, gay and transgender migrants, Indonesians. What we call fluidity in sexual and gender subjectivity is the problematic freedom of responding the power, the values of the state, the dominant religious group within society, the middle upper class, that determine what kind of love relationship and sexual practice can be categorized as decent and legitimate, which undermine and discriminate the other as merely perversion act. To be able to understand how the norm of gender and sexuality operate in our society, such as other aspects of our life, we can never separate them with this history of colonialism by the West and the interference of the state. I'm going to move on to the Dutch Eurocentric white supremacy academic system. I am an anthropology student who experienced studying anthropology in Indonesia and in the Netherlands. I started to notice that there were not many anthropology students came from non-Western cultural background, but taking a study of non-Western society. For my anthropologist colleagues in Indonesia, we study society. We do not study group of Indonesians and name them non-Western society. So this name had given me lots of uneasiness. In my thought, what does it mean for Western anthropologists to study Indonesians? The theory are meant and applied to understand the other. I suddenly see things that I have seen as not political before to be definitely more political. I started realizing the power relation between researcher and society that they are studying, which are non-Western, non-white. What triggered them is, of course, the otherness. This idea is for me already very colonial. And we should also not taking for granted that the opportunity or possibility of studying other society is a privilege. This is of course not something that students realize here, because firstly the economic reason and the border issues. So can you imagine the limitation of students who geographically live in non-Western countries but eager to study the Dutch in Amsterdam, for instance? It won't be possible. So I want to come to the Indonesian expert who are speaking on theorizing about non-heteronormativity. His Professor James Dananjaya was a very creative professor. He was the one who introduced to us an anthropology students Bahasa Banci, the language that emerged to be used among Banci or non-heteronormative in the hair salon parlor. Now it is used between women and Banci, or Banci and Banci as well. But this language is contradicted with the masculinity. Those who believe they are masculine gay will not use this language. So we have been doing this study of queer and feminism. We do not even realize that those are academic terms which came from Western academia and thinkers. So these are the terms that used in Indonesian language that I need to emphasize. It is very difficult for Indonesians to put ourselves in the category, are you gay? Are you heteronormative or not? Are you transgender? Because this is much more related to the masculinity and femininity rather than an exact category. And this is also intersect with the social class and also how your parents are teaching you about heteronormativity. In much more lower class society, they do not have this pressure to maintain heteronormativity, because for many Indonesians, pride is a very important value, and particularly for the middle upper class people. But for the working class and the lower class, it is not really practiced as difficult as in the middle class. So to see that how gender and sexuality is practiced is not only about what is your identity, and this is why I'm using much more subjectivity to be able to see the relation between how you want to present yourself, but how your society asks you to reflect about yourself to outside the world. And compared to the languages such as French, Dutch, and English, Bahasa Indonesia emphasizes less on gender variation. This language has more relation to social class position of a person within society. In Indonesia, we have different ways to address people according to their social class, from which kind of family they came from, and also their age. It has function to respect the elders and maintain the hierarchy. Gesture and tone are also important to distinguish what we attempt to show: authority or submissiveness. We don't have, for instance, she or he to address a person, which is very gendered. We only have one word, namely dia. So you don't know whether this person is a man or woman until you see the person. So I don't try to say that there is no sexism or binary distinction in Indonesian language which reflect the norms and value. I think sexism exists in all society. There are homophobia, transphobia, patriarchy tradition, and white supremacy. Even light complexion still considered to be norm of beauty in Indonesia. But how it applies in all society, of course, differs. And this is what I, as Indonesian, who taste the knowledge that taking root in both Indonesian and Eurocentric tradition and live in Europe feel important to be able to talk my own experience and thinking the need of decolonization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tanti Noor